They humiliated her. Laughter echoed through the marble courtyard as she was dragged toward the exit, her linen dress wrinkled, her flats dusty from the cobblestone floor. They threw her out of a billionaire's wedding, all because she was dressed too simply. "She's a wedding crasher," someone shouted. "Look at her, probably here to seduce a rich guest." What they didn't know was this. The woman they just kicked out wasn't a guest. She was the bride. June Parker arrived at Via d'Este on a late June afternoon, the kind of day where Lake Como's waters shimmered like liquid glass and the air carried the faint sweetness of blooming jasmine. The villa, a 16th century masterpiece perched on the lake's edge, was transformed into a fortress of opulence for the wedding of Beckham Rowe, the reclusive tech billionaire whose AI platform, Neural Core, had redefined global innovation and amassed him a $120 billion fortune. The guest list was a tightly guarded secret, rumored to include Saudi princes, Silicon Valley titans, and European aristocracy. Paparazzi were banned, their boats chased off by private security drones, and the airspace buzzed with helicopters ensuring privacy. This was no ordinary wedding. It was a global event, cloaked in exclusivity. June stepped out of a modest Fiat taxi, her cream linen dress catching the breeze. The dress was simple, sleeveless, with a soft drape that hugged her slender frame without shouting for attention. Her chestnut hair was woven into a loose braid, a few strands dancing free in the wind. She wore no makeup beyond a swipe of gloss, and her only accessory was a small card, her invitation, tucked in her hand. At 34, June's beauty was quiet but undeniable. High cheekbones, green eyes that held both warmth and steel, and a composure that seemed to anchor the chaos around her. She approached the VIP entrance with measured steps, her worn leather flats silent on the cobblestone path. The guard, a broad-shouldered man named Marco with a jaw like granite, stood beneath an archway draped in white roses. His eyes flicked over June's outfit, lingering on the absence of diamonds, designer labels, or anything that screamed wealth. He held up a hand before she could speak. "Staff go around back," he said, his Italian accent thick with dismissal. He pointed to a service alley where waiters in crisp uniforms scurried with trays. June's lips curved into a faint smile, unshaken. "I'm a guest," she said, her voice clear and steady, like a bell cutting through fog. She extended her invitation. "June Parker." Marco's brow furrowed as he took the card, turning it over as if it might reveal a punchline. "Wait here," he grunted, stepping away to speak into his earpiece. June stood alone, the sun warming her shoulders as the first guests began to arrive. A black Rolls-Royce disgorged a trio of women in glittering gowns, one in emerald sequins, another in sapphire silk, the third in a gold dress that shimmered like molten metal. Their diamonds caught the light, necks and wrists heavy with wealth. They paused, noticing June, and their laughter broke like a wave. "Is she lost?" the woman in gold said, loud enough for the terrace to hear. "That's the bride's old maid, right? Here to beg for a tip." Her name was Vanessa Holt, a hedge fund heiress known for her sharp tongue and sharper Instagram feed. The other two, Elena Voss, a German media mogul's daughter, and Priya Khan, a Bollywood star turned crypto influencer, giggled, their eyes raking June's dress. "Thrift shop chic?" Elena sneered, snapping a photo with her phone. "This is going viral." June didn't flinch. She met Vanessa's gaze, her expression calm but piercing, like someone who'd faced worse storms and walked through them untouched. "You're welcome to ask me directly," she said softly, her tone polite but edged with quiet authority. Vanessa blinked, caught off guard, then recovered with a smirk. "Oh, honey, I don't talk to the help." The words landed like small, precise cuts. As June stood under the rose-draped arch, a group of tech tycoons and their wives gathered nearby, their whispers cutting sharper than the lake breeze. "She's got some nerve," sneered Cassandra Lyle, a venture capitalist draped in rubies. "Crashing in that rag? Probably fishing for a rich widower." Her husband, Owen, chuckled, loud enough for June to hear. "Bet she's a caterer who stole an invite." Another guest, tossing back vodka, called, "Send her to the docks!" Their laughter swelled, phones already out, framing June as a joke before she could speak. She stood serene, but their words hung like poison, unearned and unrelenting. More guests arrived, men in tailored tuxedos, women in couture that cost more than most homes. They formed a loose circle around June, drawn by the spectacle. An older man, Sir Reginald Tate, a British property baron with silver hair and a permanent sneer, leaned toward his companion, a Russian oligarch's wife named Irina. "Does she know this is a billionaire's wedding?" he said, his voice carrying like a stage whisper. Street market dresses and worn-out shoes aren't permitted in this section. June's fingers tightened briefly around her invitation, the only sign of tension in her otherwise serene posture. She stood straighter, her chin lifting slightly, as if the weight of their stares was nothing new. Marco returned, now flanked by a second guard, a wiry woman named Sophia with a clipboard and a no-nonsense glare. "Ma'am," Sophia said, her tone sharper than Marco's, "this entrance is for VIPs. Your invitation checks out, but you don't look like you belong. Step aside, please." Before Sophia grabbed June's arm, she stepped closer, her clipboard raised like a gavel. "You really thought you'd fool us?" she barked, loud enough for the terrace to hear. "Fake invites don't cut it at a row wedding. Where'd you get this? Printed it yourself?" Guests leaned in, smirking as Marco added, "Confess now, saves us the trouble." A woman shouted, "Bust the con artist!" Phones flashed, capturing June's silence, calm, unshaken, as Sophia tore the invitation in half, tossing it to the ground. The crowd's cheers stung, their glee at her supposed crime a public execution of her name. The crowd's murmurs grew louder, a mix of amusement and disdain. Vanessa Holt raised her champagne flute, her voice cutting through. "Gold digger alert!" she called, grinning like a cat with a mouse. "She's here to trap a rich man before the reception ends." Laughter erupted, harsh and unrestrained. Elena's phone was out again, live streaming now, her caption flashing, "Crashing the row wedding in this fit? Bold." Priya chimed in, "Maybe she's hunting for a sugar daddy. Sad, really." June's eyes flickered with something, hurt perhaps, but buried deep beneath her composure. She spoke again, her voice steady. "I'm here for the wedding, same as you. Let's keep this kind." The words were gentle, but they carried a weight that silenced Vanessa for a moment. Then Priya laughed, tossing her hair. "Kind? Sweetie, this isn't a charity event." Sophia the guard had heard enough. "That's it," she said, grabbing June's arm. "Out." Marco took her other elbow, and together they began marching her toward the exit, past the rose-covered archway and down the terrace steps. The crowd followed, a pack sensing blood. Phones flashed, capturing June's simple dress, her braid swaying, the dignity in her stride despite the hands on her arms. "Pathetic," Irina muttered, loud enough for June to hear. "No class," Sir Reginald added, his cane tapping the stone. A younger guest, a tech bro named Ethan Caldwell, shouted, "Send her back to coach class!" The crowd roared, their cruelty a living thing. As the guards hauled June through the crowd, a man in a silk tuxedo, Derek Vaughn, a crypto kingpin, flung a handful of cocktail olives at her, one hitting her cheek. "Snack for the road, sweetheart," he roared, sparking cackles. A woman in pearls flicked her fan, spitting, "She's ruining the aesthetic!" Another tossed a crumpled napkin, shouting, "Wipe that shame off!" The mob surged, their taunts now physical, filming June's stained dress, her braid catching olive oil. She walked on, posture regal, but the crowd's savagery grew, a carnival of cruelty feasting on her silence. June didn't resist. Her steps were even, her face composed, as if she were walking through a rain she'd long learned to ignore. The terrace stretched on, each moment stretching the humiliation. Vanessa's voice rang out again. Maybe she thought this was a costume party. Elena's live stream hit 10,000 viewers, comments flooding. Who let her in? Embarrassing. No one stepped forward. No one questioned the guards. The villa's gates loomed ahead, iron and unforgiving, promising banishment. Elena's live stream hit 20,000 viewers as June neared the gates, her voice a gleeful dagger. "This is June Nobody," thinking she could scam her way into Beckham Rowe's world, she mocked, zooming in on June's soaked dress, the olive stain on her cheek. "Total loser vibes, bet she's homeless by tonight," comments exploded. "Disgrace! Ban her for life," a guest yelled. "Make her trend for failure." Feeding Elena's fire. The internet devoured June's humiliation, memes painting her as a beggar. She moved forward, serene, but the global ridicule burned, a wound no one could see. Then a voice cut through, deep and molten, stopping the world. "Take your hands off my wife." The crowd froze, phones still raised, laughter choking in throats. June paused, her lips parting in a small, private smile. Beckham Rowe stood at the top of the terrace steps, his dark suit sharp against the golden light. At 39, he was a study in contrasts, lean and unassuming, with hazel eyes that could warm a room or burn it down. His dark hair was slightly tousled, as if he'd run a hand through it moments before. He'd built neural core from a dorm room laptop, a kid from Oakland with nothing but grit and a vision. 10 years ago, he'd been nobody, scraping by on instant noodles while coding through the night. June had been there, his anchor, his truth, when the world saw only a dreamer with no shot. He descended the steps, ignoring the gasps, the sudden hush. The guards released June instantly, Marco muttering an apology, Sophia stepping back like she'd touched fire. Beckham reached June, his hand finding hers, his thumb brushing her knuckles. "You okay?" he asked, his voice low, meant only for her. She nodded, her green eyes softening. "Always, Beck." He turned to the crowd, his presence commanding, a man who'd faced boardrooms and governments and never blinked. "This is June Parker," he said, his voice carrying across the terrace. "My wife. We married 6 months ago in a courthouse with 2 witnesses and a promise. No cameras, no headlines, because that's not who we are." The crowd's shock was palpable, a collective intake of breath. Vanessa's flute trembled in her hand. Elena's live stream surged to 50,000 viewers, comments exploding. "What? She's his wife?" Beckham's eyes hardened, but his tone stayed measured. Today was meant to be our public ceremony, a way to share our joy. June chose to arrive like this. Not to trick anyone, but to see who'd look beyond the surface. Who'd show kindness when they thought no one was watching. He paused, letting the words sink in. "You failed her. All of you." His gaze swept the crowd, pinning Vanessa, Elena, Priya, Sir Reginald, Irina, Ethan. "You mocked her dress, her shoes, her heart. You called her a gold digger, dragged her out like she was trash. But June isn't here for wealth. She walked away from tenure at Yale. Tenure, for those who don't know what that means. To support me when I had nothing. No funding, no name, just a prototype and a prayer. She believed in me when I barely believed in myself." June stood beside him, her hand in his, her silence louder than any speech. She didn't need to defend herself. Her grace did that. The crowd was silent now, their earlier bravado crumbling. Vanessa's face flushed, her diamonds suddenly garish. Sir Reginald gripped his cane, avoiding Beckham's eyes. Elena lowered her phone, the live stream still running, capturing every word. Beckham's voice softened, but it cut deeper for it. "If anyone's chasing gold, it's those of you who tore her down to feel bigger. You're not here for love or celebration. You're here for status, and that's not what this day is about." A murmur ran through the crowd, shame mixing with defiance. Ethan Caldwell tried to laugh it off, muttering, "Bit dramatic, mate." Beckham's gaze snapped to him, and Ethan shrank back. June squeezed Beckham's hand, a silent signal. "Enough." He exhaled, centering himself, and raised his voice one last time. "This stops now," he said. He nodded to Lila Chen, his chief of staff, who stood nearby in a navy suit, her tablet already glowing with data. "Lila, pull the guest list. Cross-check it with security footage, staff reports, anything we've got. Anyone who insulted June, name them. They're gone." Lila's fingers moved like lightning, her face a mask of focus. The crowd held its breath as guards fanned out, their earpieces crackling. Vanessa was first, her gasp audible as a guard tapped her shoulder. "Ma'am, you're leaving," he said, pointing to the gates. She clutched her clutch, stammering, "This is a mistake." But the guard was unmoved, escorting her past the roses, her gold gown trailing like a fallen flag. Elena followed, her phone confiscated to stop the live stream, her protests drowned by the crowd's silence. Priya tried to blend in, but a guard spotted her and she was let out, her heels clicking in defeat. Vanessa's exit was a masterclass in ruin. Lila stepped forward, voice clear. "Vanessa Holt, removed for defaming June Parker Rowe." Guards marched her out, her gold gown catching on a gatepost, ripping to her thigh. She screamed, "I'm connected!" But paparazzi swarmed, their flashes merciless as her heel snapped, sprawling her in gravel. Guests gasped, muttering, "She set June up." Online, her brand tanked. Hashtag Holt. Humiliated, trended globally. Vanessa's empire of scorn fell in minutes, her name now dirt, while June's truth rose radiant. Sir Reginald's face reddened as he was approached. "I'm a knight of the realm," he barked, but the guard was firm. "You were recorded, sir. Let's go." Irina clung to her husband's arm, but he was escorted out too, his wealth no shield. Elena's downfall came fast as Lila announced, "Elena Voss, banned for malicious streaming. Accounts frozen. Sponsors pulling out." Guards escorted her past the gates, her face ashen as paparazzi shouted, "Smile, influencer!" Her phone, now useless, slipped from her hand, cracking on the stone. Guests whispered she profited off June's pain. Social media turned, @Alina erased, surged, her followers abandoning her. In moments, her digital throne collapsed, her cruelty to June a fatal misstep. June's quiet grace stood taller, her victory sealed without a word. Ethan Caldwell, the tech bro, tried to joke, "Guess I'm not getting that neural core deal." But his laugh died as he was marched to the gates. The paparazzi, waiting beyond the villa's perimeter, went wild. Flashes lit up the evening sky, capturing every exit. Headlines were already forming. Billionaires booted from Roe wedding. Elites shamed in Como. The terrace was quieter now, the air heavy with reckoning. Beckham turned to June, his anger fading into something raw. "You didn't have to do this," he said, his voice for her alone. She smiled, touching his cheek. "I wanted to. For us." She stepped away, slipping into the villa for a moment. When she returned, the crowd's breath caught. June wore a couture gown, ivory silk that flowed like water, its bodice embroidered with pearls that glowed under the setting sun. Her braid was undone, her hair falling in soft waves, a diamond clip catching the light like a star. She was stunning, not because of the dress, but because of the woman inside it. Humble, fierce, herself. Beckham took her hand, his eyes never leaving hers. The officiant, an older Italian named Father Lorenzo, stepped forward, his white robes rustling. The ceremony began as the lake turned gold, the sky streaked with pink. Vows were exchanged, June's voice clear, promising to stand by Beckham through every storm. Beckham's quieter, vowing to be her home, always. The guests, humbled, watched in silence, some dabbing eyes. Sir Reginald's cane no longer tapped. Vanessa's laughter was a memory. The kiss was gentle, a seal of something unbreakable. As they turned to face the crowd, the applause was soft at first, then grew, a tide of respect. June didn't bask in it. She didn't need to. She'd come to test the world and found it wanting, but she'd also found her place, right here, with Beckham. The reception unfolded under a canopy of stars. The villa's gardens alive with lanterns and music. June and Beckham danced, her gown shimmering, his hand steady on her back. Lila approached during a quiet moment, her tablet dark now. "It's done," she said. "The internet's obsessed. June's trending as the billionaire's truth. They're calling it iconic." Beckham chuckled, pulling June closer. "She is." June leaned into him, her laughter a soft melody. She'd walked into judgment and walked out stronger, not because she'd won, but because she'd stayed true. The world would remember this wedding, not for its wealth or scandal, but for the woman who'd faced a crowd and shown them what worth really meant. June Parker Rowe didn't need a spotlight. She was the light. If this story struck a chord, like, share, comment, and don't forget to subscribe for more.